Hello and welcome to Sitcommentary. What? It's just me on the screen. That's weird. What? Where's the other guy? Oh yeah, like we told you last week. Sadly, Chris cannot be here tonight. He is doing something in Louisiana. He thinks he's cooler than me. He's, probably out there eating beignets. Because that's what you do in Louisiana, right? You just eat beignets? I think? I don't know. That's what I did when I was in Louisiana. So yeah, today's a special episode of Sitcommentary. I'm not reviewing Raising Hope today because that just wouldn't be fair to Chris. He'd be behind. It's not fair to me because I'd have to do all the work for a normal episode of Sitcommentary just to be by myself. That doesn't sound fun. This episode's already going to be weird because it's just me. But hey, let's roll with the punches, as they say. Let's get into it. Today on Sitcommentary, we're talking about a special topic. We're talking about Austin's top 10 favorite sitcoms. These are the top 10 sitcoms in my opinion. These are sitcoms that I love. Let's talk about them. Let's get started. Let's get started with number 10. The number 10 sitcom, in my opinion, is the show Workaholics. Workaholics is a really entertaining sitcom. It's about, you got your three guys there. You got Durs, Blake, and Adam. They're, three kind of loser kind of characters. They all work at this call center. They're goofballs. They do a lot of drinking. They do a lot of drugs. They're not what you'd call successful parts of society, but the comedy ensues from that. There's some crazy hijinks. This is, you got your classic format of a sitcom of every episode. We got some crazy hijinks going on here because these characters, they're wild. They're fun. They're hilarious. The guys here, they do a great job. I love the guys from Workaholics. All of them are hilarious in pretty much anything I've seen them in. They do. It's a great show. If you haven't seen it somehow, go watch it. I believe it's on Hulu. That's where I watched it last. I actually own it now, so if I want to watch it, I'm just going to watch it on my DVD box set. Let's move on to my number 9. The Inbetweeners. Now, here we got a story of 4 losers. But they're just, you might be like, whoa, this sounds very similar. Yeah, apparently I'm really into shows with lovable loser characters. You got some 4 goofballs. You got your different characters who you got your different tropes. You got a really, really stupid guy. You got kind of you got 2 guys who are more just kind of losers but aren't stupid. You got 1 guy who's always lying. It's a great show. If you watch our other podcast, Kentucky Route 5, you may remember that I said that one of my famous people I'd love to be friends with is James Buckley, who is a star of The Inbetweeners. He plays the character Jay. There's just great antics. It's a British sitcom though, so there's, if you're not big on British humor, you might not love it. I like British humor. I think the show's great. Got some great characters in there. Just great side characters too, and just fun antics. And because, like I said, it's a British sitcom, it's only 3 seasons of, I believe, 6 episodes each season. It's an 18 episode commitment. It's a great sitcom that you can just kind of watch and be done with in a weekend if you want. I will say, little warning, it is once again, it's a British sitcom, so their rating system's a little different. It is a very, very strong R with the language they throw around in this. If that's something you're not into, I completely respectfully understand that. So we will move on to my number 8, which is a classic here. We got a classic one right here. We got Friends. Most people have probably seen Friends, at least an episode. You might not like Friends. That's fair. Not everyone loves Friends. Friends is, I'd say so far, the most sitcom that I have on this list. This is, when you think of a sitcom, you probably think of Friends. There's the laugh track. There's the ensemble cast going through antics every episode. There's a will they, won't they relationship story arc. This is peak sitcom. I love sitcoms, so I love Friends. As we've discussed before on the show, my normal co-host, Chris, is not a huge fan of sitcoms typically. This is not a show I plan on reviewing with Chris because I know he won't enjoy it. But it's a show I love. It's a fun show. Friends, it's a great show. I like Friends. It makes me laugh. I love all the characters. They all have their redeeming qualities. Except for maybe Ross. Ross is just kind of annoying. But, he's normally funny while being annoying, so... But I wouldn't want to be friends with Ross, that's for sure. But, some great characters, great, arcs. You get a lot of... You get the stupefaction of Joey. He starts out only a little stupid. Ends the show, he's the stupid as a brick. If you like that, if you like, the stupefaction of a character throughout a show, now this is a show for you. A lot of the characters do some... This show, I will say, part of the reason why I only made number 8 is this show does fall in another very sitcom-y problem of, by the time the show gets closer to the end, all the characters are kind of just their worst/funniest qualities, and they kind of become more one note as the show goes on. It happens. It's a thing that happens with a lot of sitcoms. It does happen with a couple shows that might make it a little bit higher on this list. But it is a problem. I'm not going to say it's a good thing when characters do that. So that's why this only made my number 8. I forgot to explain what the plot is about this. The plot of Friends is you have a group of friends living in New York. That's about it. I did forget to mention that, though. So, that's what Friends is. I enjoy it. If you got some time, it's out there. Go watch it. You might enjoy yourself. It's a fun show to throw on in the back while you're doing something else. Moving right along, we have number 7. Number 7 is My Name is Earl. My Name is Earl is... How do you explain My Name is Earl? My Name is Earl is such a fun concept for a show. So you have this character, you have Earl, he's the one standing in the middle of there, he's the one in the green shirt, he's played by Jason Lee. He's a great character, he's kind of a redneck, kind of a redneck guy who's made some mistakes in his life. He, just got out of jail. He finds a lottery ticket, and, he wins the lottery. But then he gets, knocked out, and it's taken away from him, and I believe he gets put in a coma for a little bit at that point. And, he realizes that he's got a list of bad things he's done in his life, and karma is the reason why he wasn't able to keep his lottery ticket. And, he's got to, make things right with karma so he can, be right with the world. So he's got each episode, he goes down his list of bad things he did, and he tries to make up for them. That's the gist of the show. There's some great characters on there. You got, his brother Randy, really fun, lovable oof type character. He's the fat guy, haha, funny fat guy. You gotta love those characters, right? That's my goal in life, is to someday be a funny fat guy character. But yeah, Randy, he's great at that. You got I don't remember her name. I think it's Joy or Joyce is his ex-wife who's in the show. She's, married. She's now remarried to, I don't remember if his character has a name, because Earl always calls him Crab Man, because he works at the Crab Shack. I'm sure he has a name. I'm blanking on it. It's been a little while since I've watched My Name is Earl. It's a great show. It's really fun. If you've watched Sitcommentary before, you've probably heard me mention My Name is Earl, because it is made by the same creators as Raising Hope. So there's a couple, little in-jokes from My Name is Earl that have already made it into Raising Hope that you may have heard me reference. My Name is Earl, it's a really funny show. It's got a lot of heart. And, if you have... Yeah, it's only 4 seasons, so it's not a huge commitment. I will say one flaw with the show, one reason why it's, only number 7, is the show ends on a cliffhanger because they didn't know the show was ending, and that really kind of stinks when you get to that last episode and it ends on a cliffhanger and you're like, wait, what? Oh, so there's just never gonna be a resolution to that. So that does gives it a lot of that's a big bad mark that kind of takes it down from being a lot higher on this list. And without that, this show would probably make it much higher on my top list. But because of that, it makes a respectful number 7. Alright, let's move on. Let's go to number 6. Dairy Girls. Dairy Girls is a show that is based in Ireland in the 80s during a lot of political strife between Ireland and England at the time. I believe it was called The Struggles. It might have been The Troubles. I can never remember which one of those it is. It's one of the two. But that's just kind of your setting. So there's a lot of like real world crap that's happening around the time of this show. So it kind of gets referenced here and there throughout the show because it's set in this real world. But you got these fun characters. You got your 4 main girls who I forgot to do a little bit of research and I forgot their names. I've watched the show I believe twice because I watched it once by myself and then once with my mom. Really enjoyed it enough that I wanted to say, hey, you should watch this. It's fun. But I can't remember all the characters' names off the top of my head, and I don't want to go grab my phone because that doesn't look good on a podcast. The point is, you got four main girl characters. They're all fun. They all got their own little quirks and things that make them fun characters. There's also one boy character who's stuck going to school with all of them, even though it's a all-girls Catholic school. So, he gets made fun of for that, as you do. But yeah, it's the characters are so charming, and it's just so much fun. If it's still going. I believe the show is still actually going. I believe they've had 3 seasons, and there's, I believe, a 4th season confirmed. So, if you want to watch it, it's on Netflix, and will probably be a 4th season, so you can get even more of Dairy Girls if you fall in love with it like I did. One reason why I kind of put it a little bit lower on the list, even though I really do enjoy it a lot, is the digestibility of it. If you are not used to hearing thick Irish accents, might have a little bit of trouble watching it. I have watched my share of British and Irish comedy throughout my life. I've heard the accents enough that I was able to understand what was going on. You might not be able to, and that might be a deterrent. So that's why I made it a little bit lower on this list, because I respect and understand that could be a little bit of a problem for you. But yeah, that's my number 6 is Dairy Girls. Great show. It's just, there's a lot of heart in this as well. Like I think I've said that about a couple of other ones, but just you really care about these characters and what they go through as the show goes on. Time to talk about number 5. That's right, we're in the top 5, baby. We got It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. This is, I can't remember everything that's above this list off the top of my head right now, but this might be the funniest show on this list at this point. The laughs that I've had watching this show. I don't think, straight up just laughs is all that matters in a sitcom. There's, heart and storytelling and all that. And that's why this is only number 5 and there's things that did, reach above it. But this show is so funny, so quotable, so just, it's a laugh riot. There's some edgy humor here, so if you're not into edgy humor, probably isn't the show for you. Especially as the earlier seasons, the show's been going on the air since 2005. What's acceptable in comedy has changed a little bit since then. There are probably some jokes they make that they wouldn't make today. I think overall, I don't think this is one of the shows that I'm ashamed to say I'm a fan of because of how many jokes they made, they just crossed the line too far. I don't feel like it ever crossed the line that far. Normally, if they cross the line, the joke is, man, these people are terrible. Can you believe that they don't realize they're crossing this line? This show's been very self-aware of where they were and what they should and shouldn't say. And sometimes, yes, characters say things they shouldn't, but you're laughing at them, not with them. You're laughing like, what the heck is wrong with that loser for saying that horrible thing, kind of a thing, when they go there. It's not always, super edgy, but sometimes it gets there. But yeah, it's a fun show. You got your main characters. You got Mac. You got Rob. Mac is Rob. I don't know. My brain pooped there. Mac is played by Rob McElhenney. Doesn't matter. You got character Mac. You got Charlie. You got Dennis. You got Dee. Those are your 4 kind of main characters in season 1. And then in season 2, they introduce Dee and Dennis, who are siblings' father, Frank, who's played by Danny DeVito. You've probably seen a lot of memes and clips of Danny DeVito, some of the weird and crazy things Danny DeVito does in the show. It's kind of crazy that such a established actor at the point in 2006, the things Danny DeVito was willing to do for this show, it's kind of crazy. I really respect Danny DeVito's commitment to, the bit, commitment to humor. He cared that much about making people laugh that he was willing to go to those kind of places that are weird and just like, wait, what? What's happening here? But yeah, it's great. There's so many, if you're a fan of the show, there's so many quotes I could say right now that you'd be like, ha, he said the thing. I'm not going to do that because what's the point? But if you haven't seen the show and, you're an adult who likes some TVMA humor, I think it's a good show and I encourage you to watch it. It's a fun show. Yeah. Give Always Sunny a chance if you haven't yet. Let's move on to number 4. Malcolm in the Middle. So Malcolm in the Middle is definitely more of a kind of return to form here from some of the other ones we've had before it on this list, of a very sitcom. Not like Friends level of like, oh wow, this is a sitcom if you're not into sitcoms. I think Malcolm in the Middle is a show that non-traditional sitcom fans might be able to enjoy. But Malcolm in the Middle is very much like, hey, here's this family, they get into antics. And there's some fun antics they get into here. You got a lot of fun characters here. You got Malcolm, you got his little brother Dewey, his older brother Reese, his mom Lois, and his dad Hal, who all live in the main house. And then he also does have an even older brother, who as the show starts, he's living off in military school because he was a punk rebel who made a lot of mistakes. Sorry, excuse me. And it's his oldest brother, Francis. And, just a lot of the show is kind of in A plot with the characters at home, B plot with Francis over wherever he is, because he starts in military school, and this show is 7 seasons long. You don't stay in military school for 7 years. So there's some other, we follow Francis as his story goes other places as well. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of really good humor throughout the show. A lot of the characters, a lot of them, have their flaws, but they also have their redeeming qualities that make them really fun to root for in episodes that are more focused on them. Reese, he starts off as really just kind of nothing but a bully, but he grows into being more than just a bully as the show goes on. Malcolm, he starts out as Malcolm's kind of always just like a smart aleck jerk, but he's also a genius. So there's some kind of dichotomy there with, being someone that no one really wants to be around at times, but also someone who's really smart and can help out in a lot of situations. You got Dewey, who's the little brother, who starts out as just, cute little kid, and he, evolves into a really funny, integral part of that cast as the show goes on and he gets older. You got Lois and Hal, who are just it's such a good relationship, like a marriage relationship in a sitcom. So many times, like, it's, oh, they fight all the time, but, and, and then that's it, and, kind of thing, like, oh, this show, yeah, Hal, Lois, they fight, but for the most part, they're normally, even after they fight, it feels very genuine that they fight, but then they make up, like, and it feels genuine, like, it doesn't feel like because it's never like, oh, they just like, oh, I'm so sorry for the thing I did. It's just they just kind of move on, because it's kind of what happens in real life. You don't always have these grand gestures of change that you see in a lot of other shows out there. So it's kind of nice to see that they feel like such a real relationship. It's a flawed marriage, but you can still see the characters' love for each other through those flaws. Yeah, it's a great show. It is a shame that the main cast member, Frankie Muniz, doesn't remember most of the show because of a race car accident he had years later. He actually doesn't remember most of the show, which is kind of a shame, but it's a great show, and I like it. It could easily. If there was someone else on this here arguing for why it should be number one, I would have been very accepting to put this higher on this list. Personally, I have it at number 4, but I respect any argument made that why it should have been higher. So let's move on to number 3, which is Raising Hope. Hey, that's the show we normally talk about on this show. That's right, it's Raising Hope. Raising Hope is just, I'll be honest, I don't know if Raising Hope would have been this high on this list before me and Chris started doing Sitcommentary. Starting to really just like analyze what makes Raising Hope fun and why it's great is part of why this made it so high on my list. It probably would have made my top 10 for sure, but I don't think it would have made number 3 if it wasn't for the podcast, what Sitcommentary normally is, where we review Raising Hope. But yeah, Raising Hope is just, I'm just in case this is the first episode of Sitcommentary you're tuning into, which I understand. This is a more digestible episode, so I can understand if this is your first time here. Raising Hope is a show, basic plot. It's going to sound really spoilery, but it's all within the first 5 minutes, so it's not. You got your main character, Jimmy. You got his lovable but really weird, quirky family of Bert, who's his dad, his mom, Virginia, and his crazy great-grandma who lives in the house with them. Jimmy, he goes out to the store one night, tries to help out a lady who seems in a lot of trouble. She's a really pretty, attractive girl who, feels so, in debt to him that, she, for her, because it seemed like she saved her life from some guy who was chasing after her. He seems so in debt that they have they sleep together in the back of Jimmy's van. Cut to the next morning, we find out, oh crap, that lady that he helped save, she wasn't actually in danger. She was the danger. She's a serial killer. Oh, what? What's that? Oh yeah, he also got her pregnant. So we fast forward after that about 9 months to the birth of little Hope here, who at the time isn't called Hope, but that's a whole different. If you want to know more about Raising Hope, go watch our podcast. But yeah, Raising Hope, at that point now he has to raise this daughter because the baby mom, she's dead now. She was put on death row because she's a serial killer. So now this guy, he's got to raise this baby in his dysfunctional family. They're a bunch of dysfunctional rednecks, and they got to raise this baby. And we also are introduced to a love interest character called Sabrina, who he's really into. She has a boyfriend, sadly. So who knows what's going to happen there. She works at a grocery store. It's a great show. Just, it's got so much heart. I know I said that about some of the other shows already, but I feel like this show, more so than any of those other shows, has so much heart. If you've listened to the other podcasts, me and Chris have both mentioned how this show catches you off guard with how much heart and how much of a moving moment it'll have. you'll have a moment that you're like, oh, wow, that's such a sweet ending to this episode. And it's not every episode, but it's most episodes will have a moment where you're like, oh, there was the message of this story. This wasn't just silly, crazy antics. Don't get me wrong, there's some silly, crazy antics in this. Excuse me. There are some amazing, hilarious, funny antics, crazy jokes that just, this show is so funny, but also so sweet and endearing. There's a reason that I chose this as the first sitcom for me and Chris to review. I think this show is that good that I thought it might convince Chris to like sitcoms, because it's such a good representation of what a good sitcom can be. Raising Hope is a great show. So let's move on to my number 2, though. As much as this is a great show, there are 2 sitcoms that just edge it out slightly in my personal life. So, number 2, which I'll be honest could very easily be 1B to a 1A that we're going to get to. This is one of my favorite shows of all time. It's Boy Meets World. Boy Meets World is just... How do we explain Boy Meets World? I love Boy Meets World. Just the characters that you have... the characters just on that picture will be the ones I'll talk about right now, but there's so many more as you get throughout the show. But you got Corey, who's the big picture there. You got his best friend to, his right, screen left of, Sean Hunter, who's the bad boy. You got, sorry, I didn't mention Corey. He's more of a kind of a good-laced kid, not such a bad boy, but just kind of a fun kid, normal kid as the show starts. You got Topanga, who in season 1 is just really weird. She gets less weird as the show goes on, as she becomes a more important character. She becomes Corey's love interest as this show goes on. And then beneath Corey there, you got his brother Eric. This show is just, it starts out with the 3 characters I mentioned at the beginning, not Eric. The other 3 characters are in 6th grade. So it starts out as kind of a borderline, like, old school Disney Channel kids show. It feels like it's a little bit more family oriented of a sitcom, but it definitely, like, they're dealing with, like, 6th grader problems. And this show, even though it's only 7 seasons, there's some time, kind of weird wibbly wobbly time as they choose to age the characters up quicker than they really technically should have. But this show ends with them all in their freshman year of college. So you have a show that kind of grew with its audience. Like, hey, here, we're dealing with more childish problems to, hey, we're starting college and Corey and Topanga are getting married. Like, most shows don't deal with a character's first kiss and them getting married. That arc isn't a normal arc in a sitcom. You don't normally have a show that gets to do all that. But it did, and it did it really well, in my opinion. The show, it's a fun show. I really love it. I love pretty much everyone's arc but Corey. Corey has a great couple first probably five of the 7 seasons, and then Corey kind of, like we talked about earlier with a lot of sitcoms, they kind of get pigeonholed as like one of their characteristics, and Corey kind of gets his most annoying characteristics, and that's just kind of all he is, which is a shame because he had so much more as the show started, but it is what it is. You have Topanga, who started as just a really weird, like, wild child kind of character who really got grounded and became a very very good character. Just very, she was, the love story between her and Corey it's peak love story in my opinion on television. You have Sean, who just, the growth Sean's character had throughout the show it's something special. Like, it really is. Like, just the growth that character had of just kind of his lowest lows and his highest highs they're vast. He goes through a lot of growth and realizing that what he can and can't do and why what he thinks his limitations aren't. And that's awesome. It's a great arc he gets to have. Um, Speaking of character, a character that gets kind of becomes only one of their traits. We got Eric Matthews. So Eric starts out as kind of just your fun older brother character, and by the end of the show, he is really stupid. Like, he becomes a very stupid character. But unlike other shows where you're like, wait, what? Like, I'm gonna try to explain this. In so many ways, like I talked about with Corey, picking out one of his traits of kind of being kind of a dumb ditz at times and making that his whole character. Like Corey, that didn't work when they chose like kind of his neurotic side he had occasionally. They chose to make that his only characteristic. When they chose to make Eric, he's just dumb now, they did it in a way that just, it worked. He is such a funny character. He definitely becomes the funniest character on the show. Is it somewhat of a shame that he had to go from being a character with a little bit more range to only being dumb? Sure, a little bit, but Eric Matthews was a character that he played dumb real well. It was a great dumb at the end. He was great. There's so many other characters. There's Feeney, who is such a great, like, inspirational older mentor character they have, Mr. Feeney. I wish I could have a Mr. Feeney in my life to help push me on the right track sometimes, because it would have made life a lot easier if I had someone like Mr. Feeney in my life. There's so much good stuff in the show. There's so many moments, like I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but like, this show is a show I've seen multiple times. I've watched it 3 or 4 times at least, and just that love story is really inspiring. It makes me want to have a love story like that someday. I won't, because this is television, not real life. But just, it's a very inspiring, moving story throughout the whole show. It's a great show. If you haven't seen Boy Meets World, somehow watch it. I think you'll enjoy it. You might have to make it through the first season. The first season is a little rough, especially if you don't have the nostalgia for it like I do. Getting through that, 6th grader problems can be a little rough if you don't have nostalgia for it. But if you can push through that and kind of keep going, you'll learn to love it. By the end, you will love the show, I think. Obviously, I could be wrong. You have a different opinion than me, and that's fair. All right, but the point is, Boy Meets World. It's a great show. Go watch it. But it's not the greatest sitcom, in my opinion. I mean, it might be 1B to 1A, but that still means 1A is slightly better. Number 1 sitcom, which shouldn't be a surprise if you watch some of our other podcasts, it's How I Met Your Mother. Now, I know I literally just said that not the greatest. I don't know what the greatest of this list is, because this list is not based purely off of quality, because How I Met Your Mother it's fun. I think it's good. But How I Met Your Mother I don't think is the greatest sitcom ever. I think it's my favorite sitcom ever. Kind of talked about this before on a different podcast that I've done, where we talked about just television shows in general that I really liked. And How I Met Your Mother ranked very highly on that list because of how many times I've seen it is one of the main things. I've seen How I Met Your Mother probably the early seasons 8 or so times. First 6 or so seasons, 8 times. Season 7, 4 or 5, 8. I don't remember if it's 8 or 9 seasons. I've seen the last season once. I've seen the second to last season twice. And like everything before that or so, I've seen 7 or 8 times. Like, I've seen this show a lot. This show is one of those shows that I loved. I put it on the background and I just enjoy it. This show is fun. I love it. I think this takes kind of, a lot of people have, somewhat rightfully so, pointed out the similarities between this and Friends. Some of the characters have similar tropes and archetypes, you could argue. And I get it. I can see the comparison. I personally think this took what Friends did and did it better. I love this show. You got your 5 characters. You got your 5 main characters. Your main character, the title title-ish. It's not, the title isn't called Ted, but the title is called How I Met Your Mother. It's being told from Ted's point of view. Ted is our main character. And Ted, he's a great character. He's probably the least likable character of the main five, but it's okay because there's such a great ensemble that you're okay with that. But yeah, Ted, he's telling the story to his kids about how he met their mother. I mean, he could have just skipped to where he met their mother, but instead he tells them about 8 seasons or so before he even meets their mother, of all the other relationships and hijinks him and his friends got into. Because, reasons. Because if not, this wouldn't be that much of a sitcom. It would be a 1-episode special. And that wouldn't be fun. So yeah, you have some other characters here. We got, Marshall, who's one of, Ted's best friends from college, and Lily, his wife, who was also friends with Ted in college. We got a friend of theirs named Barney, who's, kind of a womanizer, but, in a funny way, because it's a sitcom, and, even if equality's not ideal in a real person, you can laugh at it in a sitcom. And then we have a kind of a new person to their group, Robin, who they meet, who, is kind of the love interest throughout the show for Ted. Is she the mom of his children? No. Is the last season not great? Sure. Is the last episode not great, even worse than the rest of the last season? Yeah, probably. I'm not going to get into spoilers there. I don't think I've spoiled anything else on these sitcoms today. But yeah, so the last episode's not great. But, I don't think it was as terrible as some people do. Some people really hate that last episode. I'm not one of the, haters of the last episode. It wasn't my favorite, but, I understand why they went where they went with the story. I think the story's great. I think the characters have a lot of great arcs. Some people argue that, some of the characters do kind of get boiled down to some of their worst qualities. I believe that's one of the complaints people have with Robin's character, is she starts out as more independent and kind of becomes more catty as the show goes on, and that's there's some fair arguments there. But yeah, I think it's a really great show. Do I think it's the best sitcom? Maybe not. But that's not what this list is. This list isn't the best sitcoms. This is my top 10 sitcoms. And that's why How I Met Your Mother is here. Because in my mind, How I Met Your Mother is great. And it just, if I look at my life, I can't deny that How I Met Your Mother is obviously my favorite sitcom. Because I've watched it an ungodly amount of times, as mentioned already. But yeah, How I Met Your Mother, great show. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. I think you might enjoy it. You might not. If you don't like sitcoms, this is definitely a more sitcom-y sitcom. If you're not into sitcoms, I wouldn't suggest going to watch something like How I Met Your Mother. I'd probably say, hey, go watch Raising Hope, which we do a podcast about every week. It's called Sitcommentary. What? You're watching that right now. Go back and watch the past episodes where we talk about Raising Hope. But yeah, this has been a special episode of Sitcommentary. It's a different episode. It's a weird episode. I think it's a little bit of a shorter episode. And that's fine, because, it was just me talking. Just shooting the breeze. Telling you about my favorite sitcoms. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this is a fun filler till, we can come back next week with a traditional Sitcommentary. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. I will see you next week, where we will have Chris back, and we will be talking about more Raising Hope hijinks. Yeah, but thank you for tuning in.